Okay, is this working? I think so. Okay, good. All right, looking at your papers first. Really good readings. As a class, you're very strong in terms of reading the text. You're asking the right questions. You're looking at it with the right eyes. Congratulations. You're doing great. So I start with Nikolopoulos. Yes, very good question. Why did Abraham have to go through exile, right? Why did God push Abraham out of his house in order to give him his promise? Any ideas why exile was necessary for Abraham? Anybody want to try to, yeah?
From what we read so far, like through his exile, he was able to allocate different resources that he may not have been able to if he stayed in the same region that he was. Like he went to Egypt and got the resources from Pharaoh, the cows and all the other animals.
Okay, so exile is a way to open one's horizons, right? So that might be one of the reasons, right? If one is to encounter God, one needs to open up one's horizons. Can't approach God with narrow mind, traditional mind, stuck in one's ways, right? You have to open your horizons, and then once your mind is broad, you will enter, you will be able to connect to God. Maimonides, by the way, who is a Jewish philosopher from medieval times, said something very similar. One has to step out of one's tradition to meet God, right? To broaden one's horizons. So that might be something like that, right? Nice. So that was a good question. Nova, good question also. A lot of people ask this question. Why was the one language problematic, right? What was wrong with them speaking one language? That sounds good, right? Yes.
Well, they were basically arguing with themselves and fighting in the new world. And God wanted to create the new world as a peaceful world. So he split the languages so that they can't fight with each other anymore.
Where do you see them fight in the story?
They argue.
Where? You're reading the Talmud, you're not reading the text. In the Talmud, yes, they talk about that. But in the text, nobody's fighting. They're unity, they're in full unity, they're working harmoniously together, right? This is a good question. Yeah.
Like, with their unity,
Yeah.
they started trying to accomplish goals that weren't in God's intended plan for them.
Okay, so there's an issue with the goals, right? But so we'll talk about that. I think some of you already caught on, but the language also is a problem, and we'll look at this, right? There's also some issue there. So good question. Hilton, you have two very good questions, which I have also wondered. Why the shift, right? Usually you build from stone. Where are you, Hilton? There you go. Hilton Hotel. You're talking about building. Perfect question for you, right? So normally they build houses from stones. Why? Sorry, it's a totally bad joke. This is my specialty. So why they switched to mortar and brick, right? There's an interesting shift, which I've always wondered why they put that detail. They didn't need to put that detail, right? So I wonder if anybody has preliminary ideas. What does this mean, the shift from stone to bricks? It's in the Tower of Babel. They specify how they build it, which I don't need that detail. Why that? Remember the biblical text very, very sparse, right? Why they add this detail? Yeah, you have an idea?
Two thoughts.
Tell us.
One, in terms of bricks and mortar, it's also involved in Egypt and the slavery in Egypt and
Ah.
Passover story. It's the same words. And then
Ah,
I'm wondering in terms of kind of comparing and contrasting civilizations, like Sumer, Mesopotamia versus a civilization that was maybe before that was less advanced in terms of like when we're getting language, we're also getting, new building materials and things like that. So like
That's good. That's excellent. You saw what she did? She saw the same sentence. Of course, you know Hebrew, so it helps, right? But she recognized the same group of words, right? Bricks and mortar was used in Egypt when the peoples were slaves, when there was a context of oppression. This helps us to think that perhaps Tower of Babel was a context of oppression. Perhaps there was a slavery going on, right? People were enslaved, and obviously this is probably what happened. Every big nation that builds big things has a slave force, right? It's not a workforce, a slave force. So you saw the exegetical approach. That was good, right? You want to do that when you see a sentence and you remember it. We've done that a lot, right? You remember it from another passage. The two passages are connected, right? This is one of the main exegetical tools you should acquire. And so this implies, you can already write this down. This is already the beginning of explaining the story, implies that the building of the Tower of Babel probably implied slavery and oppression. And maybe that was the problem, right? Very nice. Okay, thank you. It's good to have someone gonna hire you to just sit in.
I'm recommending that.
All right. Yeah, that's great. So it helps to know Hebrew, right? Because and to know and to have read and recognized. That's great. Very nice. Okay. And then you ask Hilton still. Yes, you notice the reaching to the heavens, right? And that should remind you of someone. Who else was reaching to the heavens shortly, few chapters before? Who? Adam was reaching to the heavens?
Some of you said,
Oh, but that's Greek. That's Aristotle. That's not the don't mix up the Greeks with the Hebrews. That's the Greeks, right? But in the biblical text, we had someone reaching for the heavens, someone reaching for divinity. Who? Eve, right? Remember, Eve, Cain, Tower of Babel. This is all the same lineage, right? They're all reaching for something that shouldn't be, right? So we have that element, right? This should help us clarify. Very nice. Okay, now who's this? Ah, Lam. Okay. You ask what is their fault? Good question. We'll look into that. No, that's interesting. You see a beginning of colonization here in the way that God gives the land to the Hebrews, right? That's very good. I'm thinking about this too. And you wonder why he didn't choose a Canaanite, why he brings someone from the outside and then says this is going to be yours, right? I'm curious. What do you think? Why didn't God choose a Canaanite to be a blessing to the Canaanites? Why he has to pick someone from the outside to be a blessing? Yeah.
To show that he does not conform to human patterns, is not that limited, maybe.
What do you mean?
Because basically if he picks a Canaanite to be a blessing to the Canaanites, it's maybe not as convincing of his power as it should be.
You're on the right track. Why need someone to be from the outside to be a blessing? It's usually the case in the Hebrew context. You have to be from the outside to be a blessing. What does this tell us about the foreigner, the outsider? Right? Why is it that it has to be someone from the outside in order for there to be a blessing? Something better happens, right? A blessing is you're going to change things for the best, right? Why only someone from the outside?
I wouldn't say something wrong, but like certain aspects of the Canaanites that God may not have approved of or didn't want to continue.
Abraham is pretty much morally the same. Like when you observe their morality, the moral compass of Canaanites and Abraham at the time, it's not, they're kind of functioning the same. So it's not that Abraham has a higher moral compass, interestingly. Yeah.
It's like an anti-segregation argument.
Oh,
It's like,
tell us.
like I wonder if it could be used in that context also, but like you need somebody from the outside to kind of come in because you can't do anything if you're not interconnected with people around you.
In other words, you need fecundity comes through the mixing or the mingling of the same and the other. You see what I mean? You need otherness for there to be fecundity. You follow? You know what I mean by fecundity? Fruitfulness. You can't do fruitfulness by yourself, right? You need the interference of another to create food. Perhaps God is injecting otherness into Canaan. That's okay. I know where you're going. I know what you're thinking. I'm getting there. Bear with me. So, and by the way, he does this with the book of Ruth, which we're going to look at. And this time it's a Canaanite that enters the land of Israel and makes it fruitful, right? So this is not just a unique thing to Abraham. But so there's that. Now, you're saying, oh, they're going to take over the land, right? So here's, okay. Remember plan A I told you about last time? I want to add something. It's just a theory I have just now reading this. Okay. Bear with me. Listen carefully. Everybody with me? So there were 12 tribes of Israelites, right? We know this. And one tribe was special. Anybody know what was that tribe and what was it supposed to do? No. Well, yes, but no. When they allotted the land to all the tribes, one tribe was kind of left out. Anybody know which tribe that was? So every tribe got land except that one tribe. Huh. Doesn't seem fair. Who was that tribe and why? See how far y'all read. No, you haven't seen that when they break up the land and every tribe gets land except one tribe. You know? No. Guben, I know you know.
You want me to answer?
Please do.
Oh, okay. It was the tribe of Levi, like the
Yes.
priestly tribe, and because they were supposed to sit amongst all of them.
Okay. And they don't own land. That's interesting. So the tribe of Levi, who was supposed to be the priests, they're not given land. They're supposed to live into each of the areas and be benefactors, teach the word, right? Teach, be a blessing, right? Now, could it be, just asking, could it be that Israel, the nation of Israel, was meant to be to the nations of the world what Levi was meant to be to the tribes of Israel? You following me? Let me say that again. Could it be, write this down, it's important. Could it be that Israel was meant to be to the nations what the tribe of Levi was meant to be to the 12 tribes of Israel? In other words, to dwell in a dispossessed way, to dwell in the land, but possess nothing, to be simply a blessing. You follow me? To be forever a stranger in the land. Yeah. Yeah. What if Israel was meant to be to the nations, right? The nation of Israel was meant to be to the nations what the tribe of Levi was meant to be to the 12 tribes. Dispossessed, living with, influencing in a positive way. It's just a thought I had. Are you following the reasoning? Right? It's just a thought I had. Because that would mean something completely different, Lam, in terms of receiving the land. It's no more about I'm going to possess this land and screw you, I'm kicking you out. It's I'm going to live among you and have a priestly role among you and bless it. You see where I'm going with that?
Yes, but also going by what you said in Plan A, he was planning to evacuate the people with.
Again, I didn't. Yes, I didn't use the word evacuate. I used the word to make a space, right? So he's opening up a space. Yes. Remember, the people are in a war mentality. It's our land. God is like, nobody owns land here. It's my land, right? So let's remember this. Nobody owns this land. God says, this is my land. So God is not, you see what I mean? God is not taking from the others. He's inserting within the others. He's opening up a space there. My take is that they were supposed to remain there to be blessed. Obviously, otherwise there's no blessing, right? They were supposed to remain there, but a space, so they were supposed to let go of their grasping, their fortifications, their towers, their walled cities. They were supposed to open up to those newcomers who were supposed to be a blessing. You follow? So how I'm seeing it, right, in my fantastic imagination, is that they were supposed to, he was opening up a space where they could come, but they were never meant, maybe I'm wrong, this is just me fabulating right now a bit, but they were like the tribe of Levi, they were never meant to possess, to hoard the land, they were meant to dwell in the land and radiate or illuminate the nations. You follow? So if God is choosing to, you see, the people who are grasping here is not Israel in my plan A, right? in my idealistic plan, the hoarders is not Israel. The hoarders is Canaan. They have walled cities, they have fortifications, they have, right? They don't want nobody to come in. And you see how they fight when these people are coming as immigrants, actually, right? They even before they come in the land, they fight with them, right? So there's really a desire to not allow this group to come in, right? So what if it was never supposed to be an invasion, but simply an injection of newness? You follow me? Like immigration. It was supposed to be a mass immigration project, which would fructify the land. That's my fantastic imagination. You follow? Which I think has some textual basis, right? Does that help a little bit? Yeah.
Maybe he spread them across the land. He destroyed the city, the original city that they wanted to build, because he wanted the word of God to be spread out.
That's the idea.
He wanted the Jews, the Israelites to be spread out across Canaan and whatever,
That's what I'm
in
seeing.
order to spread the word of God, and that's maybe why he let the cities that they built there stand.
Exactly.
And the original city was destroyed.
That's what I'm seeing, right? They were supposed to be throughout, part of it in a way, like the Levites were supposed to be within Israel, right? With no land. That's interesting. Okay, just leaving
So
that
the
thought.
Jews were a light among the nations, right?
Exactly, that's the idea, right? To be, you got it. Okay, great, thank you. So, all right, so leaving you with that. Quickly, Gubin, okay, what did I write? Connection, see now it becomes impossible. It's been 5 minutes, now I can't read it anymore. I think you're talking about the fault of Babel, probably, which everyone else is wondering and which we're gonna look at. And then Davidov, yeah, diversity as a condition for war, really?
Because like there's this kind of idea that like, oh, the reason why hate arises or hostility arises because people don't understand each other like that. Like it's a quote by like activist Daryl Davis is like, I realized that hate is born from confusion or born from like misunderstanding. And so like it feels weird to me that God would confuse people because like isn't that going to create more hate and hostility among
Or more fructification, more what do you call it? Fruitfulness, right? Because remember, diversity in the biblical text is seen anytime a stranger enters a space, it's a fruitful encounter, right? That's the idea. Sadly, we don't see it like this in our Western societies. We see the stranger as, some monster coming to pillage our land, right? We're missing the point, right? We're missing the point that the stranger who comes is there to fructify the land, right? There's a positive impact. And in the biblical text, this is, so in that sense, the biblical text, yes, there's potential for conflict, but there's also potential for fruitfulness, right? There's both. You're right, of course, yes.
To continue this point, it makes sense based on human nature, that fear of the unknown is what causes violence. So you would think God would calculate for human nature and human flaw and fix that, or find a solution that goes around our humanity instead of basically leading towards the fact that it will bring violence.
Or we could learn to live with each other.
He doesn't
And
give us the tools for that.
maybe he does. Right, these stories, right? All of these stories telling us about how the encounter between us and the other is fruitful already should give us an ideal, give us the will to connect to each other, right? Even when we're different. The stories are telling us over and over again, the encounter with the other is fruitful. And now it's up to us, right? And we'd have the story of Cain and Abel, right? How do we navigate the other? Right? So I see the stories as tools, right? And this is the challenge of our existence. How do we learn to navigate this difficult encounter, right? And reach fruitfulness that comes from it. You know what I mean?
You can say that because you have the book in front of you. You
Yeah.
have all these stories in one singular moment. You can read all of these, so you can capture it and learn from it. But these people are living in the moment. They don't have their stories are all oral. They don't have like something telling them, oh, hey, don't do this because that's what the other guy did.
They have stories too. These stories actually the stories Genesis 1 to 11, they date from 3000 BC, right? They're much earlier than Moses. He compiled them. So, and they have oral traditions. And if you even go to other oral traditions, you have always this notion of the hospitality, the importance of, especially in the Near East, right?
Mhm.
Hospitality is so important. They know this, right? So, and at the same time, you have these wars but I believe you have a powerful literature throughout the ancient Near East, not just in the Bible, which has this dimension of, the stranger is fruitful and let us learn to. So, yeah.
It's because of the fact that it was like a 1, 2, 3 moment. Like he just made everyone speak differently. It wasn't like an evolutionary problem where they could
Okay, yeah,
learn to work together to figure it out.
very true.
Instead, he just decided to cut them off and then let them fend for themselves, which will ensue in chaos.
Well, I want to note that no chaos ensues in the text.
In this text, but
Right? But
historically speaking.
true, very good. No, let's go to the text. Okay, so this we've struggled a bit. Let's go now into the text. So, and see if we can begin to answer these questions. So I'm going to read, and I think you noticed that too, Ruben, Genesis 1 and 12 Genesis 11 and 12 are in parallel. You have a number of parallels. You have two different ways of living in the world, right? You have the Babel way and you have the Abraham way. And of course, the goal is to follow the Abrahamic way, right? Which is, according to the text, more fruitful and so forth. So let's look at this. I looked at 5 different contrasts between the two texts. So let's go there. Turn with me to Genesis 11. Okay.
Chapter 11.
Genesis 11. All right. So I'm starting to read from the Tower of Babel. Everyone on earth had the same language, the same words, and they migrated from the east. They came upon a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. By the way, anybody knows where Shinar is?
Dinah?
Shinar, the land of Shinar.
Yes, in modern day Egypt, it was Mount Sinai.
No, not that one. That one is near Iraq. Shinar. It's the place where Babylon, which we're going to see again when we read the book of Revelation. Apocalyptic literature is full of Babylon, and we know about Babylon in the culture, right? So this is where Babylon was going to arise. This is where the empire of Babylon is going. So everything we're reading here is going to tell us about the mentality of empires. And what we're going to see more and more, especially when we go into apocalyptic literature, is the struggle of the people of God with empire mentality. Think of Star Wars. Yes, you all saw Star Wars. Remember what's it called? The Empire? Yeah, that's it. So, and then you have the good guys with the swords, right? No, not yet. I have to finish my thought. So we have the same notion, right? Throughout the biblical text, we're going to have this struggle between the people of God and the mentality of empires, which even today, right? We are in an empire, right? And we need to learn, how do we navigate this empire that we are living in? How do we not become perverted or destroyed by the empire mentality that we are in the United States of America, right? We are really in the second Rome. There are a lot of parallels between the US and Rome, the Empire of Rome. So we need to also learn to navigate, how do we live in Rome, in the present Rome that we are in. So it's very important to understand this story. I'm going to finish, then I'll get your questions. Very important to understand this story, because this is telling us how, ultimately, how are we as individuals supposed to live in this massive empire which wants to take over everything, right? And so Abraham is the figure of the believer, or the figure of the person who doesn't want to fit in the empire mentality, doesn't even have to believe in God. It can be somebody simply doesn't want to fit in the empire. And then Babel is the empire mentality. So this comes close to home, basically telling you, how do we live today in the US, which is developing more and more an empire mentality. You follow? Okay, good. So first thing we see, all right, here we go. Let us make bricks and burn them hard. Bricks serve them as stone, bitumen, and here, thank you to Gubin. I will add this to my notes. You can jot down, we are living in an oppressive system because of the illusion. You follow? Right, when we look at the story of the Exodus, when we see the Hebrews under the oppression of Egypt, they are told to make bricks like this, right? This is the same language, okay? So the parallel between the two passages is telling us, in fact, if you can find me the passage in Egypt, that would be great at one point, right? This parallel is telling us this is not just a bunch of happy people building a tower, right? This is a system of oppression. There is a slave force. People are oppressed, right? And again, you can look even, no more questions, no more questions. No. I want to finish my line of thought. So we live today, right? If we look even at our own country, our civilization, we are, right? There is there, right? We should ask ourselves, are we in the same situation where there is a slave force, where there is oppression, right? Where the worker is oppressed for the sake of, right? This is where we are. Okay. So continue. Oh, actually, before I wanted to stop a little before. They settled there. Okay, this is verse 2. They settled there. Now, what's the contrast with Abraham? So the people of Babel settle. What does Abraham do? That's what you were saying, Hilton. What does Abraham do? Let's contrast the two, right? The people of Babel, they settle in one place. What is Abraham called to do? Migrate, right? So we have the contrast between settling and migration. Let's study this. What's the problem with settling down? Again, the biblical text is taking issue with this. Remember, Cain was settling down. Cain founded the first city. Cain was a farmer. Here we have the same mentality. I'm settling down. What's the problem with settling down? Yes.
Going back to Genesis 16.
So you're tending to the earth. These are agricultural societies, right? You are tending to the earth. You're settling down. What's the problem with settling down in contrast to moving around? Yes.
Okay, now, if you settle down, you're like in one place, you're not spreading the word of God. If we're moving around, we as a light among the nations are spreading God's word to different lands, to different people, to different ways of life, to different whatever. But if you settle down, you're in one place and you're not really spreading the word of God.
Okay, good. Right. Moving, again, broadening your perspective, and also, right, like you're saying, influencing positively where you are. But if you keep to yourself, right? So there's that problem. But there's something more with settling down. What happens when you build a city in the ancient Near East? What do you build around your city? A wall, right? This is the problem with settling down. Settling down says, this is my land. And anybody coming in my land is a problem, a threat, right? And I will push you out. That's the problem with settling down, right? And this is what the text is understanding the implicit violence of settling down. When I settle, this is mine. You can starve to death over there. I'm not letting you in, right? Yes.
Like you mentioned that, these time civilizations, they were welcoming to people who were.
Not the cities, the Bedouins. So you remember you had two types of people. You have like Cain and Abel. You had the nomad who lived, and they were the ones who were hospitable. They didn't settle. But the settlers, they had walled up cities like Sodom and Gomorrah. Walled up city, no one can come in. And you come in, I kill you, right? So remember, we're talking about the US. How are we like this? Ask yourself this, right? How are we a walled empire, right? With absolutely no concern and therefore no opening, right, to otherness, therefore no fruitfulness. So that's the first point, right, that we see that's different. Okay, then we have this notion of let us build, let us build us a city. And there's a contrast between building a city and what happens to Abraham. Check out chapter 12, verse 7. What is the contrast here with Abraham? So the Babylonians build a city, so they take possession of the land. What is going on the side of Abraham? Chapter 12, verse 7. What do you see? Yes.
Instead of like building or taking the city, God says, I'll give you land.
Excellent, right? So instead of hoarding the land, God says, I will give you the land. We receive the land. We don't hoard the land. We receive the land, right? So again, right, we have a contrast between grasping attitude in life and receptive attitude in life, right? You are hoarding, you are grasping, you're trying to possess, or you're able to wait for God to bring it your way, right? This is two different mentalities. And again, our country, right? Again, very, very much hoarding, grabbing, striving, making it happen, right? Taking. And the mentality of the, how do you call the people who are not in the Empire in Star Wars? The Jedis. Let's be Jedis, guys. The mentality of the Jedi, right, is to wait for God to give you, right? You are not striving to become something. You're waiting for the divine blessing. You don't need to strive because you are receiving. You follow? That's the difference. Yes, you have a doubt. Go ahead.
But that like leaves room for like complacency. And, like, if you don't strive for anything, then
It doesn't exclude work, right? But you work in a way that's not, you're not striving. You understand that the fruit of your work is a partnership between you and God. You follow? So you do your part and God has to do the rest, kind of. So whereas in the striving, it's all on you, right? Yes.
That's always been like my issue. And knowing when to take action and when not to take action. It's like, when do you know not to?
It's a mentality, not the action, right? It's how you take the action. So yes, that's a separate problem. When to take action, when not to take.
It really applies
Yeah.
like to this, as like people say, oh, look up what you want, but then this is the idea of like, let God do it. Like when do you, like, you know, that's always like my logic with it. It's very hard for me to find that.
I think the issue is you do your part, but you know that whatever you do is never enough. We all know that whatever we do is not enough. And then there's two ways. I'm gonna cheat and get it, or I'm gonna wait to receive it. But we all have to get to that limit, right? So it's not about doing nothing. It's about doing our part and acknowledging that even though I'm working so hard, I can never get what I want, right? So one side is the Babylonians are going to be like, let me cheat and find a way to, right? For housing, you've tried this, right? You make up your CV, you fix it, you invent a bank account, you invent savings, you invent a credit, you can cheat on your credit score, you can create a new one, right? To get this is the one path, or you do your part, you fill the application, and you wait for God to give you this miracle of being accepted in an apartment. You see the difference? That's the difference, down to earth difference, right? You send applications, but one point you're gonna fix the application, on the other, you're gonna trust that God will lead you to the right landlord. You follow? That's the idea, right? So the Babylonians are gonna fix things and cheat and manipulate, and the Jedis, they'll do their part and then allow God to bring the.
Maybe if you strive and you achieve something, you feel the pride. You feel like you know, I worked hard, I did this, and that's what, and that can show other people that if they try and emulate God and emulate your ways, that they can be better people too, and you also share in like the way you feel and you're striving and whatever. You understand?
Yeah. So in other words, the striving can come from pride, can be like, I can do this. And this brings us actually to the next point. In Babel, continuing to read, come, let us build a city and a tower with its top in the sky, which we'll come to in a second, to make a name, which is what you observe, to make a name for ourselves. Go to Abraham. What is said there in terms of the name? Chapter 12:2. Yeah, 12:2. What do you see?
And I will bless thee and make thy name great.
Okay, very good. Now, the word for name, for make, we saw this before. It's the word asa, which was in the creation story when God made the heavens and the earth. So we have here an allusion to the creative power of God or of humans, right? So the Babylonians, they make their name. They create their own destiny. They create themselves. It's the self-made man, right? Pulling himself by his own bootstrap. Is the individualist self-made man. Abraham, God makes his name great. Same word, asa, which is the creative power of God, right? So here, instead of you individualistically building your own destiny, creating yourself, choosing who you're going to be, what you're going to do here, God gives you your destiny, right? The name implies destiny. It implies success, destiny.
You think maybe God?
Please, I can't. No. I need to continue. I can't because I'm running out of time. So I can't get all of your comments. I can get some of your comments, but not all of your comments. Okay, continuing. Okay, now talking to the, notice something interesting. Look at this. Let us build a city with a tower with its top to the sky. And there's a contrast with 12:3. Tell me what is the contrast? So we have a tower going to the heavens, and then we have a contrast with Abraham in 12 verse 3. What do you see? I don't see the contrast with the tower to the heavens. Let's see what you see.
Oh, in the said 12:3, right?
Mm-hmm. Continue reading.
And the Lord shall be blessed.
Okay, well, where's the contrast? Tower to the sky versus families of the earth. You see the contrast? Okay, let's analyze this. Okay, jot it down. Right, this is the fourth contrast. Tower to the heavens. This is Babel. Blessing the families of the earth. This is Abraham. Okay, what does the tower mean to the heavens? We talked about this already. What does the tower imply? What does this movement to the heavens imply? And where did we see it? Hurry, I don't have time. If you know the answer, say it. What does it mean to try? Who did this? Remind me who did this? Eve. Okay. So what did she want actually? More than that. It's more perverse. Even more than divinity. And with regards to Adam, what did she want? She wants to be a goddess. What does that mean?
Oneness.
Huh?
Oneness, like full, like wholeness, right?
Yes, but what about Adam when she becomes a goddess? Yeah. Yeah, right. Remember, they're supposed to rule together. When Eve aspires to be a goddess, she's going to rule alone. Okay, so we're looking at people who want to rule alone. What kind of people is that? Who want to rule alone? What happens when you have the people who want to rule by themselves? They want to be, tyranny, domination, imperialism, colonialism. This is all the consequences, right? So anytime you want to be number one, right? You want to rule alone. You want to be the most powerful nation, right? Everybody subservient. You're in this tower to the heavens, right? And again, try to see the connections with us. We are right there. We are right in the middle of this, right? We are in the empire, right? Now, what does it mean to bless the families of the earth? How is that different from ruling alone? Yeah.
It's to everybody. It's like so all and stuff like that.
Very good. You have Exactly. Versus ruling alone, you have interconnectivity, right? The understanding that we are meant to connect, we are meant to work together, we're meant to be journeying together, right? And to be a blessing rather than a force for domination. We were meant to be a blessing, right? Okay. Are you seeing the profile of Babel, right? You should be, I'll summarize it in a bit. Okay, then there's the next one. So when God is, looking at them and so forth, he's worried with the fact that nothing they do will be impossible. Where is that? Here, verse 6, nothing they do will be impossible. I don't see the equivalent in Abraham, to be honest. I didn't see a parallel. Apart from one thing. I found it. I found it. So first one is limitless, right? What's Abraham's limitation? Anybody know? See if I find it. Try to find Abraham's, because it's opposite, right? Try to find Abraham's limitation. I can't even see it. Come on, it's supposed to, or was it before? Oh yeah, here it is. It's a little before Abraham's limitation. Oh, come on, where does it say that Sarah was barren? I can't find it.
11.
11?
Yeah.
Oh, in 11:30. Oh, here it is. Ah, she was barren. Okay, you follow? Babel, no limitation. Abraham, limitation. He cannot bear child, right? There's a strong limitation on his creative powers. Cannot bear a child. Here, no limits. Okay, what does this look like when there are no limits? Let's explore. What's the danger of there being no limitation set on a will? Okay, right, comes with greed. It's the obliteration of the other. When there's no limitation, there is no other. It's just me taking over the whole world, right? Which was the problem of Eve. Remember, she didn't want the limitation of the tree. She wanted to rule alone. Here you have the same thing, right? No limitation. The king of Babylon, of the empire, wants to rule alone, right? And there is no other when there is no limitation. Okay, and then there's the last thing now, which brings us to the notion of the one. There's a semantic field of one. If you read the text, the word one in the Hebrew comes up over and over again in this thing, right? So make sure you write down there is a semantic field. Remember, that's when there's a repetition of one concept. You see one over and over again. Let me read it as it would be in the Hebrew, but in the English. And they said, come, let us build. Gosh, I don't have I have to look more closely, but the word one in the Hebrew comes up at least 3 or 4 times. So there's an issue here of the oneness, right? They have one language, what else? One language and one people with one language. Okay. And this is in contrast, of course, in Abraham with the families of the earth, right? With the notion of many families, right? Okay, so let's stop now and listen and explore what is wrong with the one. What's wrong with being united? Why was God uncomfortable with the one? Yes.
Okay. A person can see their wrongs when they're one.
Okay, one in the sense of homogeneity. When you say one language, what you're saying is one perspective, one worldview. And these people, they're not just united in the project, they're united in the worldview, right? In other words, they think alike. They want everyone to think like them. And anyone who doesn't think like them does not belong with them. Okay, so this is more to do with a kind of, it's not the unity of them working together so much as it is the unity of them wanting to think alike and imposing one way of thinking on everyone. What's the problem when you come into a nation or a space where one way of thinking is inflicted and anything else is not, cannot coexist? What's going on?
I guess you like cast out something.
Okay, very good, right? There's no room for other voices, right? What happens when you don't have other voices? What are you missing when you don't have other voices? Yeah.
Creativity.
Okay, creativity, prosperity, flourishing, right? So the oneness here is a oneness that is, what's the opposite of fruitful?
Stagnant?
Or barren or stagnant or, yes, barren. It's a oneness which leads to barrenness, right? It's a oneness which leads to stagnation. You don't have room for this injection of otherness, right? Which creates creativity or fruitfulness, right? So that's the issue here, right? And so when God is confusing the languages, he's simply saying, we need many voices here, right? We need many voices to coexist and to be heard so that we can be a fruitful society, right? Let us ask ourselves, right, to what degree the empire we are in is limiting other voices, right? This is everything we described. It should be a mirror, right? We should look at this description of Babel and see a mirror of where we live, right? And be warned. We need to be warned, and we need to, and the warning, right? What the text is saying is, let us be careful to live like Abraham, right? We cannot leave the empire, but we can live in it a certain way where we don't lose our souls, right? And that's the idea, is to let us adopt the Abrahamic way within the empire, right? Because we cannot escape the empire. So that's what I'm seeing there, right? Any questions before I go into some stuff about the wars that are coming up? Any questions? The wars?
Like, I like this section. The other section, like that last one, I did not like it. I don't know.
I feel you. Any comments? Are you seeing the mirror? Are you seeing how important this text is for us today? Right? This is any one of, by the way, you can look at any empire, Soviet Union, you can look at Nazi Germany, you can look at any, even communist China, any empire, right, is going to be in danger. Doesn't mean they fit all the categories, but there's going to be this danger. Even us, we're not yet completely there, right? But we're journeying there, right? We have to be careful, right? When there is an empire, immediately this is the trap. This is the pitfall. This is the danger that we ought to be wide awake about, right? Okay. So, just a few things now about what we can learn here with regards to the connection to the land. That is the plan A connection to the land, right? Remember, we're trying to develop plan A. Here with Abraham, we have plan A being developed on what was supposed to be the connection between the Israelites and the land, right? In Exodus, it's conquest, violence, war. Here, it's a little different, right? First of all, first thing I notice is the land is given, it's not conquered. Here in plan A, right? The land is given, it's not conquered. And again, I want to invite you to ponder this idea of perhaps the way that the Israelites might have lived in the land like the Levites lived among the 12 tribes, right? Perhaps this was the blueprint, right? The land was never meant to be conquered. It was meant to be offered. And the Israelites dwelling in the land like the Levites, tribe of Levi would dwell among the 12 tribes. You follow me on that one? Yeah, okay. Then it's interesting. The land is meant to be shared, not hoarded. That's what we see there, right? When he disperses the people and reestablishes diversity, basically that's the message, right? It's never meant to be just for one. It's meant to be for many, right? So we have the idea that the land was land of Israel, which later will be conquered, right? Was the original blueprint that I'm seeing here is the sharing of the land, right? The nations coexisting with Abraham. It's interesting, a path perhaps to a one-state solution in Gaza or in Palestine/Israel, right? This is, the idea was that the land was never meant to be with just one person, one group of people. It was always meant to be a coexistence between the nations and Israel. So the land was, the original blueprint, as I'm seeing it, is a land that is shared. You follow? There are repercussions for today's political context, right? In the Middle East. Take this, let it make you think about, right? What could be a way to see it, right?
You're getting this just from the idea that like Babel was.
No, I'm getting this from Abraham. Sorry, that's a rabbit hole, which I left by myself. I'm getting it from the fact that Abraham was supposed to dwell in the land with the nations and be a blessing on the nations. I'm going back to Abraham. No, sorry, you caught the rabbit hole. Good job. Third thing, the land is dwelt in on condition of the law, right? There is a notion of the importance of limitation, right? The importance of limitation, again, right? To keep the chaos at bay. right? So here in Babel, you have the absence of limitation, which is the beginning of chaos, right? Which God is presenting. In the context of the land, the limitation is fundamental so that cosmic order survives, right? You cannot dwell in the land and cross over these lines. By the way, it's interesting, last point. When it's interesting that in the land, throughout biblical history, you have many people living in the land of Israel. And it's interesting that periodically, when the people become too corrupt, they are expelled from the land, right? Now, it's interesting because not just the Canaanites that this happens to. Anybody can tell me who else it happens to that they are expelled from the land because they're too corrupt? Meaning the chaos, yes.
The Amorites?
No, they're still the Canaanites. Someone else, someone more important, yes.
I give him credit for that.
What?
I give him credit for the Amorites as well.
Well, of course, yes, the Amorites, but Cain, yes, but who else? A central, very important nation is kicked out because they became too corrupt.
Who?
Yep, that's what I'm asking. Yes.
Jewish people.
The Israelites get kicked out twice because they were too corrupt. So the land is really kind of doesn't care who is there as long as the law is being kept, right? Remember, so it's not about God kicking people out. It's the land which cannot exist or there's no order. If the law is trespassed, chaos ensues, whoever is living there, right? So the land is a bit neutral who lives on there, right? If you're keeping the law, you stay. If you're not keeping the law, right, the land breaks into chaos in a way, right? So those are the three things I'm seeing here, which of course we're going to move away from. But I wanted us to be aware of I really believe in this plan A, right? That somehow went wrong, right? Okay, any last questions? Okay, next time we're going to study the 10 plagues and the Song of the Sea. So this is, I believe, Exodus. Let's see where exactly. So you start reading the whole book of Exodus, but focus on, for next time, I'm going to start in chapter 7. These are the plagues, going to 9, and where's the Song of the Sea? Oh dear. Yeah, where does they cross the sea, you know, where is that? He's taking so much time with laws and stuff in between. And here it is, 15. There we go. Till 15. So what did I say? 7 through 15. Okay, that's your assignment for next time.
7 to 15?
Yes, Exodus 7 to 15. Okay, and you're going to focus on the 10 plagues of Egypt and the Song of the Sea, which is the last chapter, which is the song that is composed by Moses and Miriam about their freedom, right? Yes.
I'm curious, why did you skip 1 to 6? I didn't read Bible, so I'm like.
Because the violence starts on chapter 7. Okay, good. All right, let me talk about your tests really quick.